Charlie Collins, a member of the Arkansas House Panel, proposed Bill 1243 on February 12, 2013. The bill allowing Arkansas colleges, faculty, and staff to carry firearms on campus after receiving a proper concealed carry permit. Asa Hutchinson, a former Arkansas Republican representative, has been quoted, "Teachers should teach, but if there is a person who has a good experience, has an interest in it, and is willing to go through training, they should be able to carry a gun on school grounds." My name's Casey Frizzell, and I wanted to get the opinions of the people I thought this would affect the most. This is Teachers on Guns.
I don't really have any experience with firearms directly, more indirectly. My father was a hunter. My brother was in the military. But I have really no interest. I'd like to learn how to maybe shoot bow and arrow, because I think that would probably be a little bit more productive to build up my upper body strength, but I don't particularly care about guns.
Okay, yes I do. I've been exposed to firearms from my earliest years. The household that I grew up in was filled with men. I had a father who was a skeet instructor in the Army Air Corps in World War II, who was a wonderful shot, plus 3 older brothers that got BB guns as soon as they were old enough to hold one. And as far as firearms being around the house, yes, they were. They were handled carefully and responsibly, but yeah, they were there. But a funny thing happened when I was in my mid-20s, that first trip to the firing range. I think I squeezed off 1 or 2 shots and felt physically sick and did not want to continue doing it because I guess it really struck me for the first time that I had something in my hand that could kill a human being. I don't think so. I don't think so, and I have even had a student or two where it might have been reasonable to feel threatened, or at least to acknowledge the possibility that maybe something unpleasant could happen as a result of a little misunderstanding or something of that nature. But no, in general, I don't feel unsafe here.
Well, there's a significant amount of flawed logic with the assumption that more guns, which is essentially what the question is getting at, more guns is the answer. I am neither anti-gun nor am I pro-gun. I'm in favor of common sense. Argument for more guns does not make any sense. We have more guns in this country, legal ones. I don't particularly care about the illegal ones. Just look at the legal ones for a moment. We have more guns in this country per capita than any other country on this planet. So if the more guns argument were valid, we would be, fill in the blank, the safest country in the world. Right? We aren't. So more guns in the classroom. People often toss around the quote, I don't know if it's actually a quote attributable to Mark Twain, that an armed society is a polite society. I think that's probably true in the 19th century and before, but you have to ask yourself whether we actually are in a civilized society. If you think that we are civilized, then you shouldn't ask whether we want more guns. If you, however, feel that we are not civilized, well then, more guns for everyone.
I think they are zero. And the reason I think that is because of those words, in reach. In whose reach is it going to be? We would like to think that it's always going to be in the reach of the person that needs it. But a few times every year, if you're just reading, the news stories from various places in the U.S., people who are trained in the use and carrying of firearms, like, for example, court security officers, U.S. Marshals, people in courtrooms. You hear from time to time about prisoners that get the upper hand in, of all places, a courtroom, and get the gun out of the holster of the guy that's supposed to be protecting the judge, the witnesses, the people in the gallery, and all that. If a gun is in reach of somebody, then it's potentially also in the reach of somebody who should not have it.
Well, since it's a school, I don't understand why we're bringing guns into the classroom. That sounds more like we're allowing the school to develop into a citadel. If you don't know what a citadel is, Google it. Basically, it's like a walled space where people guard the interior of the space from outsiders. That sounds a little extreme to say that putting guns in school is going to turn into a citadel, but it's not really extreme when you think about it. It's just one more step in that direction. And once it becomes okay for teachers to be armed and for armed, I don't know, security officers in the hallway and so on, once those things are okay and then we have more steps in that direction, then it really ceases to be a school. And it's something else entirely.
I would probably say I would rather work in a state where that is not allowed. But on the other hand, to be fair, all it might take would be one crisis that was successfully averted by one person who happened to have a gun at the right place and the right time. All it might take is something like that to change my mind. I honestly don't know. But would I, like here at UA Fort Smith, would I leave this campus if suddenly professors were allowed to be armed? No.
No.
In public schools, absolutely. However, there was a private school that I worked at for several years here in Fort Smith where a lady just kind of wandered in and got into a second grade classroom and started talking kind of nuts, you know. So what will schools like that do? What will schools like that do? Most private schools are funded by their own families. So I could see how having an increased security presence in the public schools would cut down maybe on violence there, but public schools aren't the only schools that exist. Mm-hmm. And I think the idea of bulletproof backpacks, I've been hearing about bulletproof backpacks, bulletproof whiteboards. These things sound crazy to me. These things sound like crazy making things for our children, as far as, well, Jimmy, you know, should you find yourself in a jam, you know, your backpack could save your life. Who wants to tell their kid that?
The question is a little problematic because it suggests that there are only 2 points, mm-hmm. more guns or not. And I don't think that's really the issue. And the argument that the pro-gun movement will often start out with is, what are your alternatives to, you know, if you don't want guns, what are your alternatives then? So they're still sort of couching it as we need more security.
I would have no problem at all with a trained security officer carrying a gun in public schools. None whatsoever. And the high school that I graduated in like 1,000 years ago, there was a city police officer that we were part of his beat. Our high school was part of his beat, and we could count on his presence, you know, from time to time, tooling through our parking lot, making sure things were okay.
I don't like to spend a whole lot of time thinking about teachers with guns. But whether they could abuse the privilege, I don't see it as a privilege. I don't mean to argue semantics with you, but it isn't, in my opinion, it's simply not a privilege. It's a stain. It's a disgrace to even discuss that teachers need to be armed. They cease to be teachers. They start to be a security officer.
I definitely think they could abuse the privilege of using a gun. I think there are people who are level-headed, who with training could be trusted to have that responsibility. But there are others who, for whatever reason, temperament-wise, personality-wise, however you want to look at it, would maybe have a tendency to be too heavy-handed with it, or too reactive, too quick to react.
I certainly have thought about this a lot because my wife works here as well. When we're both here, our son is in daycare. Well, at a babysitter's house, not too far away. So I have thought about it. What would I do? Well, maybe I would die. You know, maybe I would be a victim. What makes me so special not to become a victim? I wouldn't pull a George Costanza from Seinfeld and push everyone into the direction of the shooter. You know, I'm not trying to make light of it, but the point is that I don't know. I'd like to think that I would try to be honorable, maybe heroic a little bit with a small lowercase h, but I don't know. And to that end, I would say those people who argue for guns for armed teachers, they can't possibly know either what they would do.
I think any of us can really know what we would do until we were in that situation.
Police officers, these are the people who are trained for circumstances that involve armed nut jobs, for lack of a better word, I'm sorry, armed crazy people attacking them. Those are trained to deal with the high stress environment of someone attacking you. If I suddenly am allowed, because the governor of the state says that I'm now allowed to carry a gun in the classroom for security, that doesn't mean, by extension, that I'm qualified to do so. That doesn't mean that I'm psychologically ready to take someone else's life. I don't think we can refute the argument, the initial part, about training. It would have to be extremely rigorous. I'm serious about the rigorous part. It would have to be, I don't know, every 3 or 6 months you have to take another test. Psych profile, I have no idea how that works. FBI, CIA, they all have to do, NSA, they have to do psych profiles. How often do they have to get profiled? It should be something like that, which would cost money, but maybe the individual, because it's an individual choice, the individual can foot the bill. But if there are rigorous tests and training in place to allow someone to carry, like someone like me, teacher, professor, whatever, carry a gun, then yeah, of course, I'd be okay with that, provided it's rigorous and the person is vetted psychologically. But if it's just because of some haphazard legislation that's passed that somehow makes me qualify, that seems absurd to me.
No. And the reason is because people with proper psychological training have problems with it. So what would make us think that, well, we could shoot someone with no remorse, even if that person in that moment needed stopping for whatever he was doing. Not everybody has the training, the instincts, or the ability to make a decision very quickly, and for that decision to be the right one. How do you know if somebody who may have been psychologically fit when he was certified or when he was given permission to carry this, how do you know 6 months later if he's still fit to carry that? What if there has been some kind of intervening pressure or stress in his life, some horrible, catastrophic whatever that was maybe just what was needed to send him in a mental direction that he didn't need to go? How do you know that? How do you know that? A lot of times trained law enforcement officers make wrong decisions. So what would give us the idea that people with far, far, far less training could be relied on to make the right decision in just a split second when a decision had to be made? Anyone who is too eager to carry a gun, that is suspect to my way of thinking. If you are too eager, you may have motivations of a psychological nature or whatever that if they were delved into a little bit more would reveal you to maybe not be the best person to be armed.
On February 25th, 2013, Arkansas Senate approved Bill 1234 to let college faculty and staff with concealed carry permits to take handguns on campus.